Hey everybody, welcome back to Vegas Tips and Tricks Weekly. And as you can see, we are back in the studio. Um, I don't know if we can see it or not. I actually have a couple of stickers from some old friends behind me. I can definitely see a Good Times production, and I believe just off to your right, you can also see Pennies for Vegas. So anyway, yes, we're back in the studio, I guess you could say, here on a Friday afternoon, doing our late Friday, Saturday show, and it's one of those fun shows. One of the programs that's become really popular, and we're running out of episodes, to be perfectly honest, because we're running out of years. But today we're going to do another one of our Vegas Memories series. These will, of course, also be exported over to our podcast first part of the week. But if you're a YouTube subscriber, you're going to go ahead and see those first. Sorry, a little hoarse. Seems like the allergies have kicked in a little bit early this year for whatever reason. So we're going to talk today about 2019. Earlier today, as I was sort of plotting out the show, I thought we were up to 2020, and that's going to be an interesting year to cover. I don't know if we'll do it next week or not, but we'll do it here in the next few weeks. And obviously, it's a year that, a very forgettable year that a lot of us would, quite frankly, like to forget. Do want to remind you, if you're a subscriber, keep your eyes open because we will be uploading a thumbnail this weekend for our live stream coming up on May 31st. Um, Along those lines, hope everybody has a great holiday weekend here in the US of A. Happy Memorial Day. A lot of people graduating, Mother's Day, and then Father's Day coming up next month. So it's a very busy time of the year. And of course, most everybody enjoying the fact that we're finally getting some summer weather everywhere. We're in the 80s here today in Nebraska. So today I wanted to talk about my trips to Las Vegas in 2019, and it's complicated. We could practically spend an entire 15 minutes just going through the list of different hotels I stayed at, and I won't do that, but let me pull up my little magic book where I keep all this information. It really does not reside in the top of my head, but in 2019, we stayed at El Cortez, the Cal, Planet Hollywood, Bally's, Downtown Grand, Aria, Flamingo, Plaza, Wynn, and Gold Coast. I think I think that was 11 hotels. And we were there, I guess. Let me look at the number of days that we spent there. Sorry. 5, 7, 11. We were there for 17 days. That's quite a few days, but 17 days, 11 different hotels. So that was a little bit crazy. My first trip in 2019 was very much a bittersweet trip, and a trip that probably shouldn't have happened, to be honest. And the fact that it happened was just my own, I guess, ignorance, stupidity, selfishness. But about a week or 3 or 4 days, I guess, probably before my trip was scheduled to begin, which the first trip in 2019, sorry, I do have to reference this stuff. I flew out on February the 11th and came back on the 16th. So there you go. But a few days before I was scheduled to leave, I got a phone call from my mother, and she was very concerned about my dad. At this point, Dad was just a couple of months short of his 90th, well, I guess his 92nd birthday, actually. And and he was not doing well. He'd had a few health issues here and there, but Mom tried to convince me that maybe I should cancel my Vegas trip and come see them because Dad was not doing well, and I basically kind of kiboshed that. And so instead, I flew out to Vegas. And I arrived, I think it was a Sunday night, if I remember correctly. And about the time I arrived, I had a phone call and a message from my mother that my dad had basically gone to the doctor, had collapsed, um, and was in the hospital on oxygen and not doing well. And wow, I want to talk about a slap in the face. I mean, I guess at the time I thought she was exaggerating things, um, but I guess she wasn't. And it was very much touch and go there for a day or two. They were able to get him stabilized. For the rest of his life, he was on oxygen pretty much 24/7. Um, I think suffered from COPD. Um, and of course, along the way, managed to catch COVID a couple of times. That's wonderful, isn't it? So, I mean, I get to Vegas. I'm going to be there 5 days, and there really isn't anything I can do at this point. I mean, I guess I could have figured out how to fly back to Kansas City and drive up to see my folks, but I mean, at this point, Dad was stable. He was in the hospital. I will say, shortly after I got back, I scheduled a trip to go up and see them, but I always felt guilty about that, and I probably should. Nonetheless, it was kind of an interesting trip for a number of reasons. I stayed downtown, and I believe I booked 3 nights at the El Cortez. Let me double check that because I have notes. I refer to notes frequently. Um, right. So I booked 3 nights at the El Cortez in just one of their basic tower rooms. We're a little dated, but nice enough. You can go back. There's a blog for all of this. And so I spent 3 nights downtown. The second of the 3 nights, I actually stayed over, moved over to the Cal. Um, got a really good deal on a room there. I think it was actually free. So I spent one night over there, enjoyed that experience, spent some time over at Main Street Station, etc. Um, and then my third night, I was still back at El Cortez. Um, I spent quite a bit of time downtown on during this particular year. Um, I'm thinking this was the year that I ran into Peter Briggs, one of the best dressed people in the Vegas community. Pretty active, I think, on the oh God, what is that? There's Vegas, a big Vegas group. It's been around a lot longer than ours. And really nice guy. I got a chance to talk to him. He bought me, I think, one of those footballs full of beers. And even though I think I mangled his name when I mentioned it, was nice talking to him. I said, I had a pretty enjoyable time downtown on that trip. And then the last couple of nights I spent at, see, I gotta look it up, Planet Hollywood. The other thing I did on this trip that was somewhat notable, I mean, it was pretty notable for me, is I ended up booking a ticket, and it was actually on, I believe, let me see, I think it was February 13th. I booked a ticket to the Backstreet Boys shows at or the Backstreet Boys show at the Zappos Theater at Planet Hollywood, and I went to that. Very enjoyable. Really enjoyed my stay there, or my time there. It was a good show. Um, One of my favorite concerts ever. They're not doing that anymore, but it was a very enjoyable concert. Um, Not that much went on the last couple of days. I did have a really nice Caveman Keno hit at Circus Circus. I guess it was probably my last full day in town. I won like $500. And I was able to actually meet up on that trip for probably 45 minutes or so at Hell's Kitchen with my friends Tamara and Gord from Vegas Best Ideas. We basically just had dessert coffee together. But it was nice to see them again, and I would continue to see them over the course of the year. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But other than the really kind of bittersweet way it started, it was a pretty good trip overall. My second trip was in June, was there from the 7th until I flew back on the 12th, which I guess that was a 5-day trip as well. I booked 5 nights at Bally's. Remember, at this point, I'm still diamond with Caesars, so no resort fees, no cost whatsoever, except for all the money that I spent. I guess it was the third night, I went downtown because I had managed to get a free room at the Downtown Grand from one of the hosts there. I don't know who did that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, had a nice time downtown that night. That was the only night I spent downtown on that trip, but I did enjoy that. Bally's was fine. Again, nothing exceptional. And then I also was able to book on this trip a suite of sorts at Aria, which it would definitely be one of the top 3 or 4 rooms I've ever stayed in. I joke about it sometimes. I think it was like a panorama suite. Um, Gave me access to like some special like lounge for VIPs. Um, at one of those beautiful jetted tubs that I did take advantage of, and also had one of this amazing Toto washlet toilet, which is basically a bidet, but definitely an updated bidet, and I loved it. The view was great. Again, one of my favorite hotel rooms ever. I was just there for one night. I actually took a driverless cab on that trip, which I would do later. It wasn't really driverless because there's a guy that sits behind the wheel, make sure nothing goes wrong. But I remember taking that over there. And then finally, after 2 nights away, I spent my last night at Bally's once again. Um, and that was June. Again, no really big memories. I do believe on this trip I went to a couple of shows. I went to the hypnosis show at Paris. Some of you may remember it. I can't think what it was called. Anthony Cools. Yeah, it was pretty entertaining. But prior to that, I went to a show called Paranormal, which was at Bally's, which I thought was just amazing. I'm not usually a big fan of this sort of magician, sleight of hand, trickery, but this guy was amazing. I think I've talked about it before. If you're ever in Vegas, you have a chance to go to a show called Paranormal. It probably isn't going to cost you a ton of money. I recommend it. 5 thumbs up. Okay. So, and also on this trip, I think it was my last night there, I had a chance to meet up with one of our subscribers and members, Colin Waggett, and we had a great time. Probably too good a time. We sat and drank beers at the bar there at Gustav's at Paris, probably way too late in the day, but it was great meeting him. At this point, I hadn't met a ton of people in the Vegas community, and did have a chance to connect with him on that trip, and we had a really good time. But again, fun trip. No big wins that I can recall. Finally, our final trip to Las Vegas was in October, and um, did have a chance on this trip as well to meet up with Tamara and Gord, but also on this trip, and it was my last night in town because it was their first night in town, as I recall. Had a chance to meet up with Andy and Simone, the Goodspeeds, Good Times Production. If you're not subscribed to them, please do. I'm sure you already are. But I had a good time with that. And on this particular trip, because I have to like refer back to notes, spent one night at the Plaza. Wait, hold on a second. Checked into the Flamingo. And I think I had the Flamingo for 3 nights actually. Um, the first night I got there, it was September the 17th through, I guess, the 22nd. So I spent the first night at Flamingo, ended up going downtown to the Plaza, staying in one of their new luxe rooms, and I think that may have been a comp as well. If not, it was a very reasonably priced room. Had a good time there as well, and then back for one night at Flamingo, one night at the Wynn. um, I don't, maybe it was. Let me go back and look. This may have been the first time that I used the Wynn Slots app to book a free night at the Wynn. But a really good time there. Wynn's an awesome property. And then at the end, I tacked on one night at the Gold Coast because I was able to get it pretty much comped, if I remember. I stayed at the Gold Coast many times, as regular viewers of our Vegas Memories series show will know. And I think this was the last time I stayed there. Um, and not just because they had serious elevator issues that night. I was supposed to meet Tamara and Gord out in the parking lot because they were taking me to meet Andy and Simone, and we went to Batista's, the old school Italian American restaurant over there by Stage Door behind Cromwell, across the street from Bally's. And it took me forever to get down to the parking lot because there was like one functioning elevator and it wasn't functioning very well. But it was great meeting up with those folks. Again, I think as you go through the next couple of years, as we finish up this Vegas Memories series, you'll see just how many people that I had an opportunity to meet who have become such an important part of my life and continue to be so. And certainly this year, getting a chance to meet up with Colin, meet up with Tamara and Gord a couple of times, and meeting Andy and Simone for the first time. Some great friends, some great memories, and yeah. Once again, the only thing I remember that was kind of curious about this trip, and I think it may have been the only time this ever happened, got back to the Gold Coast fairly late. I had a pretty early flight the next day, but I felt the need to play a little bit in the casino. And I think the last spin on the last machine in Las Vegas that year, I think I won like a couple of $100. And I was like, drop the mic, time to move on. All right. Well, if you enjoyed today's Vegas Memories episode, please hit that like button. Consider leaving a comment. Hey, if you were a part of any of those trips in some way, or if you had some great memories in 2019, please do let me know. As I mentioned, Wednesday, it's the live stream. Hey, there might even be a giveaway. We'll see. But we'll talk about John Timber, which we've kind of more or less finalized plans for. And we'll just talk about Vegas. And if you can join us, that'll be great because it's always fun when you get to talk to Vegas people about Vegas. All right. Until then, I hope you have a great, lucky, and healthy week. We'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye.